there's two types of people in this world. Either one you want to fit in is completely fine with me, dude. Do you? There's either the proactive people or the reactive people. The proactive are the people who are like, I refuse to be let go or for the outside circumstances to hit me. And if I can control what I can control, I will. And therefore, I will post and I will do stuff and I will attend networking events and I will want to have coffee chats with people who will take me to the next level of my career. Then there's the reactive, which is like you're just waiting for life to happen to you. You're like, well, it is what it is and it will happen and then I'll deal with it later. Either is completely fine because I know I will sleep well at night knowing that I'm in the proactive camp because I've been in the reactive camp and it's scary as fuck and I'm never going back there. Never, ever, ever. Like the most important thing is to make sure that the thing that sustains my entire life, which is money, which is a salary, is protected at all costs. There is a job insurance around it, which is my personal brand. And if it only takes 10 minutes for me to be in the top 1% of LinkedIn, which is posting 3 times a week and just writing a written post that I will write within 5 to 10 minutes, it can be done.
Hattie, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Ivan. It's great to be here.
And I'm so much looking forward to this conversation. We recently connected in person in an event, and then we decided to continue the conversation because we had a lot of mutual topics that we wanted to discuss. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show today. But before jumping into the topics, for the people who don't know you already, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Hattie the PMM. I'm the founder of productmarketers.com and I like to say I'm the Benjamin Button of the career world. I started off as a CEO, CMO, and now product marketing manager. I've been in tech for over 10 years and I have seen the span of tech change throughout over a decade. And for me, product marketing has my heart. I feel like it's kind of my passion. It's what I've been doing throughout all of my tenure within tech. And that's why, I'm super excited around the topic of product marketing.
Perfect. And just out of curiosity, what were you doing before starting your actual business career? Is there anything meaningful that led you to start as a CEO and then continue your career?
Yeah, so how I got into being a CEO was I had just graduated. I had studied economics at Kingston University here in London, and I had a string of jobs. So I was a recruiter for the financial district here in London, and I also had sales jobs. And basically, I had a knack for getting fired then, where I just could not hold down a job for love nor money. So what I realized was I saw a gap in the market for an e-commerce platform for feminist and body positive fashion brands, which was of its time, was like 2013, 2014. It was unheard of. So I built this tech company in order to fulfill that demand and hosted other people's products within my site, as well as our own made products that were made in the UK and China. And that's when I was like, wow, you can really just create something out of nothing. I was just like, I don't have to ask for permission to do anything, or I could just do it myself. I can hire people. This is wild to me. So that's what kind of kicked off my love for creating something from 0 to 1 on the internet. And also the fact that it was permissionless, right? I just didn't wait for someone to give me a job. I didn't wait for someone to hold my hand. My parents, I come from a very poor family. My dad was a baker. My mum is a teaching assistant. And she came to this country being a cleaner. So I was just like, you know what, let me just try. Let me just see. So, and then when I exited the company 6.5 years later, that's when I had put out my announcement on LinkedIn and Twitter that, hey guys, I've done this cool thing and exited. That's cool. And then a CEO out of a tech company in Finland had reached out to me and saying that he had admired how I really lean into the guerrilla marketing, the product marketing side of the business. And he wanted me to do that and replicate that success within his SaaS company. So that's when I became CMO. And then I became like product marketer because I really like to niche down into a topic that really piques my curiosity. And the one thing that I had noticed, which I didn't notice when I was doing it, was the thread was product marketing. It was about looking at who is the customer that we're going after? What do we need to tell them in order for them to either trust us or want to have a conversation or see that it's like we recognize that we understand their pain points and all of that. And I recognize that, oh, I didn't even know that I was doing product marketing. I just thought that this was logic, like common sense. So that's how it ended up that way, kind of by design. And yeah, I'm really thankful that this is the way that my career is kind of going.
Amazing. You certainly have an entrepreneurial mindset, or at least looks like you started from the early beginning of your career thinking that way. I'm curious, what is it like to be a CEO without, any previous experience? Do you have any recommendation for people who are jumping into this kind of role for the first time? And also, what would you recommend for people that have sort of fears and uncertainties about getting into their first big role without necessarily having all the background and experience?
Yeah, I would say utilize your naivety, because the more you try to know, the more it will scare you to not do it. So I think because I had been CEO when I was like 23, 24, that I'd recognized that, oh, I can just take on the world. I can do whatever. And I think bringing that naivety and that optimism, that sheer like blasé optimism actually helps, because my God, is it tough. And if I had known how tough it was back then, there is absolutely no way Ivan would have done it. So I think if anyone's thinking about dipping their toe into the entrepreneurial pool, I would recommend just doing it and not thinking. And if you have naysayers around you who are like, don't do it, it's so risky, blah, 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 I would be like, well, my mantra is, I don't know how long I have on this earth, right? I think a lot of people think that we're kind of impenetrable, that we're going to live forever. And I'm like, dude, I could fucking die tomorrow. Like, I don't know. So I just think, what is the wildest life I can live? Like, so long as I pay my bills, that I can just be like, these are going to be the stories when I'm super hot and 90 years old, God willing that I live that long, that I can tell like my carer and be like, I did this. And she'll be like, oh, okay, all right, Hattie, sit down. So yeah, I just think, why not? Just if it's another thing that you can add to your life and the colorful life that you want to lead, do it. But also I think the biggest thing that I'd learned being a CEO quite young was the work that it was doing on me. I had not realized the sheer amount of skills that it was instilling into me as quickly as it was. It was like an accelerator for becoming a really efficient human. And I feel like everyone should at least try to start up their own thing. It could be completely free. It could be a thing that you provide to your community. It could be a little charity. It could be, whatever. It could be a dinner. But I think it instills the skills and showed me the traits that I was lacking. So for example, being an entrepreneur taught me a lot about patience. It taught me to kind of breathe. And even now I'm trying to remind myself to be patient. But it did a lot of work on me, as well as me providing the value to other customers.
Interesting. What do you believe is the number one skill that a CEO or someone who's managing people should learn as soon as possible, especially with your experience? What was the top, hard skill and soft skill you believe that someone should develop if they want to grow, if they want to learn how to build relationships and also managing people?
Communication is number one. And it sounds cliche, and you probably heard it a million times. However, I have seen the best CEOs conduct themselves in a way that I don't see regular employees conduct themselves. And let me explain. So for example, the last company that I worked at, it was now it's 150 million ARR company based out in America. And the CEO, Mark, he's exceptional. And there's a handful of people that I would ever say are exceptional, because I just have high standards for everything that I do and the people that I surround myself with. But he was exceptional. The way that he conducted himself and the communication skills that he had, which was like, he was exceptionally funny. He was able to be assertive without being someone that you disliked. He was able to be likable by anyone at any level. I'd seen him conduct himself with people on my level, which were the product marketing managers, versus the people who were in the venture capital world that we had backing our company. I'd seen how very, very effective communicators move up the ranks quicker than those who don't. I think it's a kind of misconception where a lot of people think, what is more knowledge that I can consume? What's another book I can read? What's another course I can take? And I'm like, dude, get your butt into improv comedy classes, because For me, I have done, I think, 3 rounds of courses in improv comedy where now I perform once in a while because I'm obviously hilarious now. But why I recommend improv comedy to everyone is it's a crash course in learning how to communicate, how to say words out of your mouth when you are super stressed. So for example, there is a lot of eyes looking at you, you're under a spotlight. How do you then bring out your best self? How do you then communicate in a very high pressure environment? And then the third is when it comes a time that you're asked to do a talk or join a podcast like I am here today with you, then I'm not winging it. I'm not practicing here on the job. I've practiced on stage. I practice in my downtime, in my spare time, tens of hundreds of times at improv comedy classes, right? And I think it's getting those reps in that people are lacking. And when people are like, oh, well, Hattie, I communicate all the time. I speak to my friends. I speak to my partner. I'm like, yeah, that's when you're comfortable. Like, where else can you simulate the fact that your armpits are a bit sweaty, your hands are a bit clammy, you're getting hot, you're feeling a bit of nerves, like your heart is starting to pump. Like, how can you simulate that? And I say improv comedy is the best way to do it. And I feel like, especially people who are kind of breaking into a new career, for example, product marketing or any career, or even just mid-tier or even senior people, I say that you cannot invest enough into how you communicate through your verbal expressions, but also how you communicate with your words. I think that you can never become better. And I'm 100% certain now, and I never say certainties in life. I'm always like, I'm an it depends sort of woman. But when it comes to communication, I'm 100% certain that the people who move up the fastest are very, very good at it. And all it needs for you to believe me is look at the bullshitters who move up in the ranks or who are not let go during tech layoffs, who talk a good game, but do nothing. And that, to me, my friend, kind of proves the point. So communication, even though it sounds cliche, is 100% key.
I think it's not cliche. So on one side, the topic. On the other side, what I find really important, and I have a sport background, and in sport we say that the person who wins is the one who's doing something what nobody's watching. So basically all the prep that you do before a game, a competition, a meeting, etc., nobody's going to see it, but they're going to notice it once you play the game or you're in that interview process or you're in that important meeting. That's where you would see the difference. And I really agree with you. I'm curious. I've heard a lot about improv classes, and for a lot of people might be either stressful or inconvenient, or they might not have access, to these kind of activities. Do you believe there's something that people can do in their homes or in a less stressful environment, just in order to take baby steps to get there? I would assume that for lots of people might be too much out of their comfort zone to join a theater class or an improv class, etc. Do you have any kind of baby step that you would recommend for someone who wants to improve their communication skills?
Yeah, so baby step would be watching other people who are very good communicators on YouTube, or watching documentaries of them and see how they conduct themselves. Because it's not just about how they communicate when they're on stage or when they're doing something of importance, but it's watching how they communicate with their team behind the scenes. So for example, there's a Tony Robbins documentary, I think on Netflix, which is I'm Not Your Guru. And for some reason, I've watched that a couple times. Yeah, it's pretty good. I've watched it a couple times, mainly because I just want to see how he conducts himself outside of his presence, outside of his job, which is on the stage. I want to see what happens behind the scenes, like how many people are involved, what's involved, etc. So I would say watching other people and seeing how they conduct themselves and how they actually communicate with their team, with their family, but also with the customer. Because I think a lot of people, it's funny when I think about personal branding from myself, which is how do I conduct myself online and in real life and make it congruent? A lot of people will be like the most energizing person on stage. Oh my God, they're so charismatic. But then behind the scenes, they're an absolute terrible husband or a terrible wife, right? And I'm like, well, which one are you? And that's why I'm like, well, if you get angry at your child or your husband or your wife, is that you? And am I just seeing a show when you're on stage? And I think that's why it's like, watching how other people, especially people that you think are very healthy and you want to emulate, just picking up the little bits that you want to take. So for example, I spoke at the PMA London Summit end of last year, and I sat through every single speaker slot, every single one from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then I had events in the evening that I was attending. I was shattered. And bear in mind, I had done my talk as well. But why I had sat through every single other speaker slot when other speakers would come up on stage and then they would leave, which is normal. Like, I'm not judging that. Absolutely normal. Do you? Why I did it is because I wanted to learn how other people are conducting themselves on stage so I can take any learnings and apply it to the next time I'm up on stage. And I think it's, like you said, the repetitions that you don't get in real life, how do you emulate it in your bedroom, at your house, in a very safe environment? And I would say consuming the content in which you want to learn from. And then your barometer in your head, or at least for me, my barometer is like, oh, I like that, I'm going to do that. Oh, I don't like that, I'm definitely never going to do that. And it kind of puts me on a gauge, barometer-wise, of what looks good and what I really like. So I would recommend that. And then if you are comfortable and want to go one step beyond, there are online improv comedy classes. I've never done it personally, so I can't really vouch for it because I've only ever done in real life. But I would recommend maybe giving that a shot. Or even you can play like a round of like Pictionary with your friends and your family, and you're just trying to communicate things in, again, like a tiny bit of a high pressured environment where it's like games night. But yeah, I would say those are sort of the starting points that I would think about.
So we covered communication as one of the skills. On the other side, other connected topics that frequently pop up, especially in a work environment, are connected to influence and leadership. How do you believe communication impacts those other areas? And again, what are some practical things that someone can do in order to start building their influence or authority in an industry or in a company? And how does that connect, in your opinion or in your experience, to the leadership part of it? So you've been very young into a high impact role in a company or into different companies. And what's your take on this part?
Yeah, it's hugely linked between how you conduct yourself, the authority and the influence you have, and then how you're taken seriously in terms of leadership, or if you even considered for leadership. And the thing is, I think most people who hire leadership are looking for the skill sets more so than the knowledge. It's like, how can they conduct and instill a culture or instill a movement and a notion within our employees to get them to act? Are they very good at negotiation? Are they really good at being able to influence others? Are they very good to communicate our company to a wider stage, whether it's like press and PR statements, or whether it's actually doing talks and getting the word out there on behalf of the company? So it really is the personal branding piece that comes into it. And when I can speak to my life, especially being in tech, where tech layoffs were happening and I was an employee as a PMM, I saw a lot of people who were very good at their job, but not very good communicators, they had no authority internally because they were just doing their job, and they were known within our smaller team and not known by the wider team, that they were the first ones let go. And I was like, oh my God. Firstly, I was like, is this an American thing? Like, is this like an American tech culture thing where you have to talk a big game? Because, being European and working at, UK and Finland-based companies, I was like, well, we didn't really have that in a way. So, but what I had recognized was actually it started to instill that culture within the European firms as well, from all of the conversations I was having with other PMMs. So looking towards, how do you build up that authority and influence internally? For me, what I did was I'd recognized very quickly after my good friends were let go on the first round of layoffs, and bear in mind, I survived 5. So I know that these steps work, was there's internal personal branding and then there's external personal branding, and they can both work together in order to secure your career. And how it did for me was, internally, I had recognized that I had a micromanager at the time, he was not vouching for me positively internally whatsoever. He was really downplaying my name. He was really downplaying my work. And in a way, it was like gaslighting. So But here's the thing, here's how I knew it was gaslighting, was my colleagues within my smaller circle were like, Hattie, you're doing a great job, you're doing amazing. And then the VPs of engineering and product were shouting me out on company update calls. They were like, Hattie's doing a great job, she helped with this, this, this. And then it was my manager who was like, nah, I don't think it was that great. And I was like, what is happening right now? The minute my manager was no longer my manager, I had taken that as a opening for me to start working on how I'm being perceived internally, because I knew that he was probably not vouching for me positively with the executives, the people who pay my fucking bills. So I needed to make sure that they understood that I was actually a linchpin, that I was actually useful, and that was actually very, very valuable to this company, which I really was. So what I did was I did a product marketing roadshow, which is basically a fancy way of saying that it's team-based meetings and me explaining what product marketing is, who I am, what I'm doing, especially since there were new people who had joined the company, even though layoffs were still happening. And then I had done company update meetings. So on the company update call, which was across 500 people across America, UK, and other countries across Europe, I wanted to have a slot so that I could speak to the product marketing element. So again, I'm getting the face time, the visibility in front of the people who fucking matter, which was like the private equity firm, the higher ups, the executives who I'd never met. I was working 100% remotely, so I was trying to get as much airtime and air coverage as possible. Then I was pairing that up with my external personal brand, which was basically I was posting on LinkedIn for the entirety of 2024. So I did 300 plus posts in a year, because I thought to myself, if this company decides to let me go, I need to keep signaling to the market that I'm really good at what I do, that I should be hired at any time in the cycle of hiring for any company. And thirdly is I just want my name out there, so I don't have to be one of the hundreds and hundreds of people who apply to a job on LinkedIn, right? So I was pairing the two up, but equally I was using what I was posting on LinkedIn to get in front of the right key members within my organization to make sure that they were being updated on me. Because obviously I'm not going to post on Slack, hey, I've done this and I've done that, and I'm not going to broadcast what I'm doing on Slack, right? And luckily I had a really supportive manager. So she was just like, yeah, just do what you want, post whatever you want. So on my LinkedIn, I was just full gun ho. I was just like, this is what I'm doing internally. This is the project I'm working on. These are the results I'm getting. Look at how fabulous I am. Positive, positive, positive. And it was great because then I started to attract recruiters, but at the exact same time, people internally were like, hey, I read your LinkedIn post. That's great that you did that on the project. Can you explain it to our team? I was like, well, yeah, that's great. Of course I will. So it was a pairing of the two. And I don't think people strategically think about this until it's too late. I think most cycles go, oh, I work a job, I get let go. I search for a job, I get into a new job, and then I get let go. And then the cycle continues. But Ivan, your question was perfect. And I don't think a lot of people ask it, which is like, how do you build up the authority and the influence in order for leadership to consider you as kind of one of them? So in some ways, I was doing the work as an IC, as an individual contributor. I was doing the work, but also I was conducting myself like I was just like them, like I'm a leader, like I'm a very good communicator, that I will always have the answers that you need, top of mind. And therefore, I was always seen as valuable, because why the hell would they get rid of me when I had all of the information that they really, really relied on, the really tough information, the data points, the information on our ICP. Like whenever there was a question from a private equity firm on like, who are we going after? What is their LTV? What is their like CAC? What is this? And like, how many leads did we get last month? How many did we actually turn into paying customers? I knew this off the top of my head because I made it my imperative, my priority to know it. And I think too many people are too caught up in like, let's read a book, let's do a course, let's learn about the philosophy of product marketing. And I'm like, how is this going to help you? How? You're just wasting your time. You're absolutely wasting your time. So yeah.
Great question. And actually, I wanted to get a little bit more into the personal branding side, and you sort of anticipated this. I wanted to understand what made you decide, from a successful, potentially also profitable career in a C-level role to translate and to gradually move into personal branding. And I think, or at least one thing that I've realized is the exact cycle that you mentioned you would start seeing people active on LinkedIn once they're either looking for a job or they're in a transitional period. While I think you did a very smart move. So you sort of anticipated the trend and securing your career by start working on your personal brand as an insurance before anything else happens that's outside of your control in the industry, in the market, in your company, etc. So how was this transition? Did you have any fear or imposter syndrome about starting posting from zero on LinkedIn while you were still employed, working on a company? You could potentially get some feedback from people within your company that might not necessarily align with what you want to communicate. What was it like, this initial step when you started posting? Did you have any fears, doubts, and what did you do in order to be so consistent? Because posting over 300 posts per year on LinkedIn takes discipline, consistency, self-confidence, and a lot of other things. So how was it for you?
For me, I had my reason why. And my reason why was the fact that I'd seen a very, very, very good colleague let go. So it was a regular day and the Slack message popped up on my screen, which was, "It was nice working with you." And I was like, what the hell? And I messaged him and I'm like, "What do you mean?" And then he was like, "Yeah, I've just been let go." And then I saw Slack turn his account from active to then black. Like the screen actually turned black, like black and white in front of me. And it freaked me out so much. Like I've never seen that happen ever, because usually if someone's let go, you see, and then they're deactivated later and it's a black and white photo. But I saw it happen right in front of me. So I start shaking, dude. Like I'm there shaking. I'm like, what is happening right now? And it was that moment that I was like, I couldn't believe it. It was in that moment I couldn't believe it, because he was an exceptional person. He was so good at his job, and that's why I was just beyond shocked. So it was in that moment, Ivan, that I had decided I need to stand out. It's not a question of if, I needed to. So I'll be honest, I was so afraid of being let go because, I'll be real, I'm a single woman, I live alone, I'm the one who pays my bills and for everything, whatever. So I have no one to rely on. Like my parents are broke, like they don't have money. So I was just like, what am I going to do if I was let go? I refuse to enter the pool of hundreds of people. I fucking refuse. So I was so scared that the imposter syndrome left the building. Like it was just fear that was driving me. And I just utilized it. I utilized it like a Red Bull with a like a bull to a red flag. I was just like, I'm going after it. I was running away from the fear of being laid off. So that was like the moment that I was like, I need to figure out who am I trying to attract with my content, and what am I trying to do in terms of my strategy when I'm creating content, but also what am I doing internally to help improve my situation, which was I needed people to understand that I was a linchpin internally within this company of 500. So if they did a round of, we've let go 10% of people, that I'm not in that 10%. I absolutely refuse to be in that 10%. If I was, then I wanted, like you said, to have the insurance, job security insurance, that if I was let go, I could post it online and people can be like, let's hire her. She clearly knows her stuff. So for me, it was the reason why. And I would recommend, if you or anyone listening has imposter syndrome, figure out what is your reason why. It could be the fact that you have children that you need to make sure have food in their mouths. It could be that you have a house with a partner and you need to make sure that you bring in the money because maybe your partner is unemployed right now. Or for example, one of my friends, him and his wife, both were let go within the space of a couple of weeks. And they were just like, what do we do? Because their overheads were so high, so high. So again, it's like, figure out what the reason why is and figure out how do you motivate yourself. For me, in a kind of a toxic way, but again, maybe it's related to the sports background. And like you said, Ivan, about being within sports. And I like to consume sports documentaries. That's my thing. For me, I like to run away from fear and from pain. And I use that as motivation to run towards where I want to get to. So sometimes just seeing where I want to get to is not enough. I need to run away from something at the exact same time to actually instill momentum within me. So I would recommend going through the two, which is like, what is your why, and what are you running away from, or what are you running towards, or what are you doing in the both of those? And for me, it was very clear as night and day, which was I refused to get laid off because I pay for me.
And I think one other positive thing about this approach, maybe not everyone considers it, but it happened to me. So once you have the confidence about being valued in the company, of having a strong personal brand, is that you're not acting from fear, and you can actually provide more value to the company and your employees, because you can be yourself, you can say what you're thinking, and probably rather than just reacting to inputs in terms of requests, etc., you can actually put your extra, thing in order to provide more value. And at some point, I think people inside the company notice that, and you really see the difference between an executor and someone who's actually, and maybe that's also a product marketer context, but usually you would expect from product marketers to provide an additional angle or layer of thinking on top of what's the usual status quo. So I do believe that this is quite valuable. On the other side, let's get tactical. So I want to start building my brand, and we can take LinkedIn as an example. I update my experience, my education, my picture profile, banner, etc. And then I have a blank feed, and I don't really know what to post, in what format. Where do I start? What kind of advice do you have in order to go from 0 to 1 in a smart way that actually makes sense?
Yeah, so this is one thing that I learned from my coach, Amelia Sordell, who has over 200,000 followers on LinkedIn and has generated over 4 million in inbound revenue through her LinkedIn alone. She has taught me, think about what is your goal, who do you need to attract in order to fill it, and then what content do you need to create in order to get it in front of those eyeballs. So for me, it was a case of I didn't want to get let go. I wanted people to understand that I was really, really attuned to what product marketing is, and that I'm a very, very good hire. So I wanted to attract other PMMs, other senior PMMs, recruiters. I want to attract those people, and therefore I created content which was all about product marketing. So a year ago, it was solely product marketing, my takes, my experience, what I was learning, what failed, what succeeded, etc., etc. But I was very transparent, very honest. I spoke in my tone of voice, and then I just really lent in. I think where a lot of people, especially, are starting, like you said, 0 to 1, they get afraid of the blank feed, and they're like, well, I see all of these beautiful posts and beautifully designed graphics. What do I do? I'm just like, dude, just start with a written post. Written post is completely fine, because here's the thing. If you post 3 times a week on LinkedIn, you're in the top 1% of LinkedIn users. Because like we said on this podcast earlier, a lot of people treat LinkedIn as the place to go when you're let go or you're looking for a new job, and then you log in. So maybe it's once or twice a year for these people, or maybe once or twice every 4 to 5 years, who knows? So for the rest of us who are a little bit more active on LinkedIn as a protective mechanism to secure our careers, it's about what is the little bit, what is the MVP that you can do 3 times a week? Then you stand out. You're literally in the top 1%. The bar is so low right now. And I feel like this is the prime time to get in, which is just post a written post. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but speak about your experience. I think where a lot of people go wrong, Ivan, is they think about what is the 5 generic things that I can speak about in this 5 list post. And I'm like, well, I could Google that. I can ask ChatGPT that. Why it needs to be a personal brand is the fact that the word personal the word personal is in it. It's about how has it manifested from you and your life and your career, and how can we learn from you? So then when someone wants to hire you, it's you, and they're not hiring Google, right? You're not an information brand, you're a personal brand. So therefore, just speak about any of the learnings. And one of the tips that I recommend from when I started, which was I was just looking at the things that were in my calendar, because I was like, well, what am I dealing with right now? Oh, I debated with a developer on XYZ. Okay, maybe I'll make that a post. how does a PMM navigate debating with developers? How do we make sure that we stand up against it? And here's the thing. Being a product marketing manager, especially, I'll speak to my career, it was less about me just saying, here's the thing, I've done it, and being reactive. It was more about how can I carve out time to be proactive? And therefore, how can I carve out time to think and to be strategic, but also to be considered someone who is super important internally? And then I can take the learnings of what I'm implementing and then share that online. So then it's just a case of networking en masse. It's my personal, in real life person, but en masse, on scale. It's like a scalable way of more people to find out about me. And that was the nature of the game, because I just wanted to make sure I was securing my career. So if you're starting from 0 to 1, I would recommend, like, absolute MVP is like once a week, write a written post about maybe what you accomplished that week, or something that you learned, or something that didn't go right, or something that went extremely well that you were surprised about. But always speak about it from your personal take. Otherwise, if it's Googleable, a person will Google it and it won't be useful.
One other angle I think it's interesting revolves around the fact that, as you said, you would see lots of people posting, but statistically, more than 90% of the audience on LinkedIn is silent, which means that you're comparing yourself only to the top, maybe 1 or 3%, let's be generous, about people on LinkedIn. But there's a huge ocean of people who are maybe just passively browsing through the feed, and they could start engaging with your content, even if they don't visually engage by liking, commenting, and resharing, but they would still be exposed to this kind of information. So probably that's something that people should consider. What you see on the feed is just who's active, who's been already there probably for some time. But the majority of people are, as you said, they're just trying to start, they're afraid, they don't consider it seriously.
Yeah, because on that, a lot of people say, well, what if I don't get any engagement? Like, I just post and no one actually likes or comments on it. And I'm like, that's great. They still see it. They will still see it. Because here's the thing. A lot of the recruiters who were in my DMs never engaged with any of my posts. None of them. Even senior PMMs, they did not engage with it. And for some reason, and I don't know why it is, but I think the most serious people who are considering you aren't engaging with your post, but they are seeing it. So one of my friends, Ken, he was like, I read every single post that you make on a daily basis. And I'm like, dude, you have not engaged with one. Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, no, but I do. I really do. I was like, oh, interesting. And the same thing happens with clients. So if you're, for example, a fractional PMM, or you have a PMM agency, then it's the exact same thing. That people are looking at your posts and they're considering hiring you, but they're not engaging. It does not mean you stop. It does not mean you pause. It means you keep going, because here's the thing. The social media metrics don't always align to the business metrics. And this is what was in my head, which was my business metrics were, I wanted recruiters to be in my DMs. That was my KPI, man. That was it. So I didn't care about the social media metrics, which is like the vanity metrics, the likes and the comments. Who cares? Like, who actually cares? For me, it was about the consistency. I didn't care. Most of the days I was like, I need to make a daily post. And some of the days when I was tired or ill, I was like, no, forget it. I'm not doing it. So yeah, it's just about realign to what your goal is and stay firm on it, and do not care about the vanity stuff.
You just anticipated again my question, because I wanted to ask about your perspective on engagement, on metrics, because it's very likely that for a month, 6 months, a year, maybe 5 years, you will not get an exceptional engagement. I mean, today there are strategies in order to accelerate it, but also in terms of branding, it takes time to build your brand. So don't also expect, from the very early beginning to have the vanity metric engagement that you see on other posts, because you don't know how much time, effort, and what kind of activities this person engaged before you started actually even noticing it. So there's a lot of behind the scenes, going back to our previous discussion, that's going on there. What's next? My understanding is that you went from personal brand to community before doing an actual product launch service. First of all, let me know if that's correct. And second, what is it like, this transition? And what's the difference between personal branding and community? And is that the right step before actually trying to monetize it and to make it a business, in your opinion?
A lot of questions in that one. Yeah, I would say if you're thinking about potentially monetizing your audience, you have to build your audience first and you have to get them to really love you and not just like you. And I think that's kind of the key for it, because what I'd learned was there's a lot of people out here who have massive followings, like hundreds of thousands, millions, but people just kind of like them. They're kind of lukewarm to them. And for me, I was like, I just want a small niche. I want a small pool of people who absolutely love me, hopefully. And for me, when I was employed, I was building up actually a pool of other PMMs who wanted to learn from my product marketing knowledge that I was sharing online. I really was just thinking about the recruiters that I was attracting, but by proxy, I was building up an audience. Then I had other PMMs asking me in my DMs, hey, how do I build up my personal brand as quickly as you have? How did you do it? What's the strategy? Blah, blah, blah. I was giving one-to-one advice and I was like, you know what? I might as well just create a community, an online community, which is productmarketers.com, for other PMMs to learn how to build up their personal brands internally where they work and also externally on LinkedIn or any other platform that they're caring about. For example, it could be conferences, meetups, whatever. So then I was like, I needed to create that space because I would have loved that a year ago, Ivan. I would have loved it because it would have given me the safe space to have these conversations that I had to do alone on my own. And I didn't want to be alone on my own. So if anyone's thinking about, okay, well, what's the next step? What's the next way to monetize your knowledge? One thing that I would recommend, and it's a hypothesis from me, which is, and I've never heard this anywhere else, so I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, it's just one thing that I'm thinking about, is the idea that a PMM employee or employee across the board within tech or any industry, you can build up an audience that you can then monetize as part of a negotiation when you get hired at a new company. Because if you go to a new company and you know that they share the same ICP as your audience, then why wouldn't they want to hire you as a strategic hire over someone else who doesn't have an audience, right? Because they can tap into it, because they can go through you. And the thing is, CAC, which is cost of acquisition of a customer, is only going to go up. It's only going to get more expensive to acquire a new customer. And as software companies scale with time, they go to colder and colder audiences, and therefore it means that it's going to be expensive. Now, what if you can hire someone who has 40 or even 5,000, 10,000 people who are your absolute ideal ICP, and you can bring them in and they can do a good job and they can speak about what they're doing within your company to your ICP. It's a match made in heaven. So I feel like that's the sort of way that I would go if you're an employee and you love the medical expenses, the private medical care and all of that, which I definitely miss. That's one way if you want to monetize and be an employee, and you don't necessarily always have to go down the entrepreneurial route. But I would recommend having something on the side because it's always worth having distributed ways of having income sources, just in case you're let go, you have or you just want to quit, or you have health concerns, whatever, then at least you have money coming in a different fashion as opposed to just relying on your salary.
There are two more things that I wanted to ask you. The first one is about positioning. So one of the skill set of a product marketing is positioning. I'm curious in how did you approach this for your personal brand? So let's say if someone is not experienced into differentiation, into positioning, etc., or building up a value proposition, how did you approach this for your personal brand? Did you have any kind of framework, or was it more a trial and error experience where you refined and validated your assumptions with time? How did you go from one of a million, let's say PMMs, to Hattie the PMM? So finding your uniqueness, your niche, and your unique way of providing value to this specific target audience.
So at the start, it was definitely winging it, but it was also me using my mental gauge, which was that I like of what other people are doing with their personal brands and that I don't like with what they were doing with the personal brands. So I didn't really like the AI driven stuff or people creating billboard photos or anything that looked cheap. I was like, ugh, I just don't never want to associate myself with the word cheap. So then what I figured out was I needed to list down the words that I want to associate myself with, which are quality, honest, authentically myself, a bit sweary, a bit rough around the edges, but I'm real and I'm useful. And everything that I share is usable and really, really actionable. And therefore, I had these as like my linchpin words that I would always go back to. So everything that I create, everything that I do, everything that I be associated with are related to these words. And therefore, that's how I position myself in the category of product marketing and within the industry. And when it comes to me doing a conference speaking gig, to how I conduct myself at Meetup, it's all around that. It's like down to earth, usable, just authentically me. So no one will ever come across my content and be like, oh, that's cheap. Like never, like it would never happen. I'd rather not put it out. So therefore, when I see little hacky ways of getting more followers on LinkedIn, I'm like, if it's not associated with how I position myself, I'm not doing it whatsoever. Categorically, it's a no. Because Apple, for example, Apple doesn't need to do the hacks. Apple is Apple. It's quality. It's useful. You trust it. And therefore you go back and back and back. And I hope to become like that, which is like, I'm the person within product marketing where you know that my content is always going to absolutely bang, 10 out of 10 bang, and it will never be like not useful whatsoever or complete fluff. So if someone is listening and they're thinking, how do I position myself? I would think about a few ways, which is like, do you want to be known geographically or nationally or worldwide? Like, do you want to be the person within like Italy or the UK or whatever? Do you want to be known within a specific industry? So for example, do you want to be known as like the fintech PMM, the legal tech PMM, etc.? And then it's a case of, well, what are the topics do you want to be known for? Do you want to be known for positioning? Do you want to be known for messaging? Do you want to be known holistically as a generalist across product marketing? And then it's a case of, what are the words that you want associated with yourself? When they're like, oh, I just met Ivan and I saw Ivan's content. Oh, I think about this about him. Or when I see Hattie, I think this, like she's amazing. She does this. And you can craft it. And here's the thing. It doesn't have to be reflective of who you are now. So for example, if you're in a tough spot and you're like, man, I just want to become that leader. You know, I'm at the start of my journey, or I'm in the midway and I want to be seen as like a CMO level person. But right now I'm just being considered for senior PMM roles. How do I get up to CMO level? Then it's a case of thinking, well, what are the words that you would associate with a CMO that you envisage yourself to be? And therefore, how do you use those words to then drive the content that you're creating right now? So then people start to perceive you that way. So then when you're building up the skill set and the knowledge, then you're ready for when those opportunities come your way and you're not just winging it, right? And I would say that those are the ways that I would think about when you're starting to question, how do you differentiate? How do you position yourself? Those are the sort of starting blocks that I would go for. I hate the word frameworks. They're definitely not a framework, but I definitely winged it. I did the wrong thing, the right thing, the wrong thing, the right thing. And that's sort of like my gauge of now what the answer is.
Was it difficult to balance your time at a company and also finding some free time to work on your personal brand? Lots of people would assume that you can't do both at the same time because it requires time, effort, energy, maybe also money to start working on it. What was it like for you? And do you have any strategies on how to find the resources, even if you think you don't have them?
I would say the answer is no. It doesn't have to take a lot of time or money. And how I know this was I was speaking to other PMMs who I was trying to get to build their personal brands, and they were super busy. They have children. They have a busy life. They have a social life. They have friends. They have ball games that they attend, etc., etc. And I was like, just post one written post that you would write on your commute to work and write it as if you're just speaking to me, as if you're explaining something to me. And they would do it. And it would literally take them 10 minutes. What is 10 minutes out of your day? I feel like a lot of people, they kind of misconstrue what importance is. And for me, and I will speak from my life, like the most important thing is to make sure that the thing that sustains my entire life, which is money, which is a salary, is protected at all costs. There is a job insurance around it, which is my personal brand. And if it only takes 10 minutes for me to be in the top 1% of LinkedIn, which is posting 3 times a week and just writing a written post that I will write within 5 to 10 minutes, it can be done. It can be done. Where the time zap comes in is the level of quality in the written post or the level of quality in like an image that's created alongside it or a video that's created with it. Then, you know, obviously time investment comes into it. But I would say for the people who have an excuse, which is, I don't have the time, I call bullshit. Absolute bullshit. You can find the time right now. You can remove like 10 minutes from a Netflix show. Or whilst you're cooking and something's in the oven, you can use a time where it's like 30 minutes in the oven. You can use the time to write it. But it's a choice, which is like you're just not doing it because you've either given yourself the excuse or it's just not important to you. And there's two types of people in this world. Either one you want to fit in is completely fine with me, dude. Do you? There's either the proactive people or the reactive people. The proactive are the people who are like, I refuse to be let go or for the outside circumstances to hit me. And if I can control what I can control, I will. And therefore, I will post and I will do stuff and I will attend networking events and I will want to have coffee chats with people who will take me to the next level of my career. Then there's the reactive, which is like you're just waiting for life to happen to you. You're like, well, it is what it is and it will happen and then I'll deal with it later. Either is completely fine because I know I will sleep well at night knowing that I'm in the proactive camp because I've been in the reactive camp and it's scary as fuck and I'm never going back there. Never, ever, ever. And I will not allow that to happen to me personally. And I have PTSD from seeing my other friends go through it. Thank God I didn't go through it, but seeing 5 rounds of layoffs was just wild. It was just the PTSD is real and it's never going to be shaken from me. So be honest with yourself. If you think you can't find the time, bullshit, you can. You're just choosing not to.
I don't have anything to add to this one. I was just listening and laughing because, I've been there as well. And I know lots of people who are into this kind of situation. And sometimes it just takes to make this switch between being proactive and reactive. Hattie, before we wrap up, I just want you to talk briefly about what you've built and who is it for and where can people learn more about this?
Yes, so I built productmarketers.com, which is the supportive and encouraging place for other product marketing managers to learn how to build your personal brand internally where you work and also externally on LinkedIn or conferences, meetups, networking events, wherever. So it's a place for you to learn what is the strategy that you can apply to your job, to your career right now to secure it, to make sure that you stand out and to make sure that you really overcome any of the things that we cannot control, but to take what we can control into your own hands. And if you suffer with imposter syndrome, you don't know where to start, you don't know if it's for you, you have confidence issues, believe me, you want to be in this community because I feel like this is the place where I'm already starting to see people coming out of their shells and it's only been a week since launch. So yeah, I feel like if you are a product marketing manager and you're a little bit curious, join us, like literally join us and see how your life can change this year.
I certainly will. Where can people find you besides the website? Are you active on social media?
Yeah, so people can find me on LinkedIn. So I'm Hattie the PMM on LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel where I'm Hattie the PMM there as well. And I create videos, long form, short form, all around product marketing and dispelling the myths around product marketing as well. So it's a mix of like really getting people ramped up to work on their career, but also what are the tactical things you can do within your career to become a better PMM.
Sounds good. Hattie, thank you so much for being with me today. I've learned a lot and I believe that the listeners will learn as well. So once again, thank you and wish you all the best with productmarketers.com.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Pleasure to be here.